Once upon a time, in the heart of a busy city, lived a woman whose name commanded respect in every corner of the state. Her name was Chinwe, popularly known as Lady C. To the wealthy, she was a symbol of power and influence, and everyone aspired to be like her. Lady C owned several companies in the country and could pass for one of the wealthiest women around. She was not only rich, she was influential, untouchable, and well connected, and perhaps this turned out to be one of her greatest weaknesses. Her elder sister Adora had long ridden the waves of Lady C's success. With her sister's connections, Adora opened fashion houses, traveled the world, and mingled with the creme de la creme. But Adora was not just ambitious, she was cunning and full of jealousy for her sister. Adora could not understand how her younger sister would be richer than her. She had always believed herself to be the one who would be wealthy and popular, but as fate would have it, her younger sister Chinwe turned out to be the wealthy one. So Adora lived with this hidden jealousy and hatred. She paid a visit to her sister one evening with a suggestion that ended up changing everything. "Lady C," she said with a calm voice, "you need spiritual covering. All this wealth, people are watching. Envy is real. You must get a pastor who would always intercede on your behalf to ensure that no evil plan comes to pass in your life." Lady C chuckled and asked her if she wanted her to leave her businesses to start attending church. Adora smiled and replied to her that she had to, if she wanted to live long to enjoy her money. "I have a church that will be perfect for you. The pastor is a very powerful woman of God, rumored to be the best in the country. Her church, Power Missions, is a home of miracles and testimonies. Lady C, you can't be this successful without a spiritual backing," she said to her sister, who agreed completely. That was how Lady C decided to attend the church. Her sister Adora accompanied her on one fateful morning to introduce her to the pastor, who was popularly known as Miracle Madame. Lady C was immediately welcomed by the church. Soon, a special chair was placed at the front of the church, reserved only for Lady C. Whenever she came to the church, she sat on the chair and listened to the sermon of the pastor, who gave her so many prophecies about her life. "God is about to elevate you even more," she would often say to Lady C, who she cajoled into dropping money for prayers. And so it began. Lady C was asked to sow a seed of 10 million naira for breaking foundational curses. A week later, another 15 million naira to protect her business from evil eyes. Then, 20 million to secure her destiny from spiritual attack. Lady C, eager to protect her empire, paid the monies that were requested. Her sister encouraged her to take the prophecy seriously, as no amount of money was worth losing her wealth and status. "You're not just anybody, C. You're the most powerful woman I know. If anything happens to you, would all be finished." Lady C nodded, overwhelmed by fear which was now disguised as faith. And so, she gave and gave and gave, and within months, Miracle Madame had Lady C on speed dial. She no longer waited for church services to see her. Private sessions were held in her office, and every prophecy came with a price tag. Every dream, every vision, every revelation cost her millions, but Lady C believed it all. She began to isolate herself. She no longer signed off on projects without asking Miracle Madame for spiritual clearance. She ignored her business instinct and leaned entirely on the divine instruction provided by Miracle Madame. Her managers began to complain. Partners withdrew, but Lady C did not listen. She was convinced that her wealth was under spiritual attack and that she had to do whatever she could to secure it. It was around this time that her only brother Eze came visiting with his wife Ebele and their 2 children. Ebele was a simple and kind-hearted woman who had great respect for Lady C. Her children adored their aunt and always looked forward to visiting her mansion. They laughed and played around the mansion as if it were their home, and for a brief moment, the house felt like family again. But her sister Adora hated Ebele with all of her heart. She did everything possible to poison Lady C's mind towards Ebele. One evening, she approached her sister to lay a complaint. "Ebele is a pretender," she said, twisting her lips as she continued to speak. "I have a bad feeling about her and would advise you to not fall for her fake and pretentious acts. She's only here because of what she can get from you. I bet that she is doing all this because she wants something from you," she said to Lady C, who tried so hard not to believe what her sister was saying. However, a few days later, Ebele approached Lady C with a file, pleading with her to help her secure a job. "Auntie, I studied human resources and have been applying for jobs with no luck. If there's anything you can do, I'll be forever grateful," she said to Lady C, who took the file with a nod. "Drop your CV on the table," she replied Ebele, promising to do something about it, but her mind was already made up not to help Ebele. Her sister's warning the previous day continued to echo in her mind, poisoning her thoughts towards Ebele, who she believed was a user. That evening, Lady C carried the file to Miracle Madam, who laid her hands on it and began to pray. "This woman is bad news," Miracle Madam said with a frown on her face. "She carries a destiny of competition, and the Lord says that if you help her, you will regret it for the rest of your life. She would replace you and be richer even, whilst you live her life of suffering. Make sure you block every door to her breakthrough or else you will suffer." The next day, Lady C gave the CV to her assistant with strict instructions never to hire her. She even went further to use her connections to ensure that Ebele did not get any job in the city. Every time her brother Eze or his wife Ebele asked about the job, Lady C would smile and promise them that she was working on it, but what they did not know was that she was doing the complete opposite. Months passed and even years, but Ebele did not get the job. She was unemployed, doing menial jobs to support her family. One morning, Ebele met a family friend of hers who was so shocked to see her cleaning her neighbor's house. "What are you doing cleaning houses when your sister-in-law is giving jobs to people who are not even related to her? The other day, I heard she gave jobs to 5 women on the street to help their lives." Ebele smiled faintly as she wiped her hands on her dress. Madam C must have her reasons. I believe she's doing what she thinks is best. Her friend looked at her in disbelief. "Ebele, how can you defend her after all she's done to you?" But Ebele just shook her head. "She's under a lot of pressure. People expect so much from her, forgetting that she's only human," she said to her friend, who shrugged and wished her luck. In her heart, Ebele believed that Lady C was still a good person. She made excuses for her, telling herself that perhaps the delay in helping her was divine timing, or that Lady C might have genuinely forgotten. Ebele then decided to pay Lady C a visit in her office. She arrived at the office and met with the receptionist, who told her that Lady C had traveled. Ebele stood there as another woman was ushered into Lady C's office to meet with her. "But you said she traveled," she confronted the receptionist, who ignored her completely. Ebele in that moment could sense that something was definitely off. She turned to leave when suddenly she caught sight of Madam C strolling out of her office with her bag. "Auntie," she yelled out as she approached her side. Lady C turned sharply, her expression hard and cold. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice sharp enough to slice through the air. Ebele took a step forward as she began to speak. "Auntie, I just came to check on the job you promised." "To do what?" Lady C snapped, loud enough for the staff nearby to pause what they were doing. "To beg for a job again? To cry and act like a victim?" Ebele froze in shock as she watched Lady C hold out her wrist and point at her. "Listen to me very carefully, you woman. You see all this humility and soft talk you always bring? It doesn't move me. I know your type. You came into this family to climb, but I won't let you climb on me." Ebele's eyes watered as she tried to defend herself. "Auntie, that's not true. I just wanted help with a job." "Don't you dare call me auntie." Lady C backed angrily. "I'm not your mate, and I'm certainly not your auntie. I don't owe you anything. Do you understand me? You are not entitled to my money or my help," she said to Ebele, who stood there frozen as silence swept through the hallway. If I see you anywhere near my house or office again, Lady C continued, lowering her voice but making it even more venomous, I will embarrass you beyond recovery. You should be ashamed of yourself, throwing yourself at me like a beggar. Auntie, Ebele whispered, her voice breaking. I never meant to offend you. I only came to check on the progress of the job that you promised me. Get out! Lady C shouted as she walked away from her without looking back. Ebele stood for a moment, her dignity shattered. She turned to leave as she walked down the hallway. Ebele tried too hard to hold back her tears, but her tears poured freely like a fountain. She could not understand what she could have done to Lady C to warrant this level of anger. Lady C watched from the back seat of her car as Ebele boarded a tricycle from across the road. She pulled out her phone and called her pastor, who she told all that happened with Ebele. Miracle Madam was so happy to hear this. Well done, daughter of Zion. The Lord is pleased with you for protecting your throne. However, the battle is not yet over. You need to send 5 million naira for special prayers, she said to Lady C, who immediately sent the money without delay. As the months went by, Lady C's presence in the church became more pronounced. Her chair became like a throne where she sat. The church even went further to install a golden plaque on it with the inscription, reserved for Her Excellency Lady C. One Sunday, Lady C arrived at the church and met her chair covered in strange powder. She tried to wipe it off, when suddenly she slumped to the ground unconscious. She was rushed to the hospital, where a series of tests were carried out on her, revealing that she had stage 4 cancer of the blood. The doctor further revealed that she had a few weeks left to live. Lady C watched as her health began to decline at a very terrifying rate. She grew weaker and weaker, and the news of her failing health began to spread in the tabloids, who revealed that she had a few weeks left to live. Her business partners began to withdraw from the company, fearing what will happen if she finally dies. Her company stocks crashed in the stock market as investors began to pull out their resources. Lady C sent for the pastor, who informed her that she was under an attack. You must sow a special seed of 50 million naira for a 7-day deliverance prayer. If not, the sickness will consume you completely. Lady C, desperate for healing, paid the money without thinking twice. However, after weeks, nothing changed in her health. Her hair began to fall off as her skin turned pale. Her strength began to fail her as she remained in the hospital. Treatment caused sad, and her company began to suffer. It was not long before the board members of the company replaced her with another. Her empire began to crumble, and her sister Adora was nowhere to be found. I'm in Abuja for a business meeting, Adora texted her sister, who called her repeatedly with no response. The pastor even refused to pick her calls, and Lady C wondered why this was happening. What she did not know was that her sister connived with the pastor to rip her of her money. The chair that was specially assigned to Lady C was charmed to make her do the pastor's bidding at all times. However, on the day that she collapsed, the pastor had just renewed the charm on the chair to make Lady C to willingly release more money to them. However, this did not work as Lady C collapsed before she could even sit on the chair. Lady C stared at the hospital ceiling day by day, wondering how everything crumbled like a pack of cards. One evening, as she laid on the bed sad and dejected, the hospital door creaked open. Her brother's wife Ebele entered the room, holding a flask and a bag full of fruits. Lady C could not believe her eyes. What are you doing here? She asked Ebele, who smiled and set the bag down on the table. I heard you weren't feeling too well, auntie, so I thought that you would need some company, she said to Lady C, whose eyes welled up with tears, not from pain but from guilt. The memory of that cruel day in her office returned like a slap to her face. I insulted and humiliated you, Lady C whispered as Ebele assured her that it was all in the past. I know you were under pressure that day, auntie, she said to Lady C, who could not believe how cruel she was to such a compassionate woman who had only showed her love and respect. Lady C requested for her phone immediately as she began to dial some numbers, pleading with the people to secure a job for Ebele. All the people she called knew of her health condition and were not willing to help. Lady C could not believe how she had fallen. From being one of the most revered figures in the state, she was now a sick woman with no power or influence, and worst of all, no one was willing to do her favors. But Ebele stayed. She came every morning with warm meals and flax, freshly squeezed juice, clean towels, and gentle smiles. She cleaned Lady C's room, massaged her feet, helped her bath when the nurses weren't around, and even sat with her for hours, talking and holding her hands when she was too weak to speak. The doctors and nurses began to notice her constant presence. "That's her sister-in-law," one nurse whispered to another. "She's been coming every single day. You think that she was even her daughter?" Ebele never for once brought up the past. She never mentioned the office humiliation, never asked for help again, never looked at Lady C like she owed her anything. She just loved and served her from her heart. One night, when Lady C was too weak to lift her spoon, Ebele fed her slowly, wiping her lips gently after each spoonful. Lady C looked at her with trembling eyes and asked why she was doing this for her. Ebele replied, "Because you're family, auntie, and because I still believe that the real you is in there somewhere." For the first time in weeks, Lady C smiled, a weak, broken smile. It was shortly after that moment that her sister Adora reappeared, dressed in a glittering gown and high heels. She strolled into the hospital like royalty. "Oh my God, Chinwe, you look so different," she said, her voice laced with first concern. "I've been so busy with business, but I've come now, and I'll take care of everything." Lady C did not say much. She just nodded weakly. Over the next few days, Adora began making phone calls, not to doctors or caregivers, but to lawyers and estate managers. She asked for updates on her sister's properties. She began insisting on getting her sister to sign over powers of attorney. "You never know, Chinwe," she whispered one morning. "Things could go south. Let's put this in place just in case." Lady C watched her carefully. She saw how quickly Adora grew impatient when doctors entered the room. She noticed how Adora didn't know how to help her sit up or where the painkillers were kept. And in those moments, she saw her sister's heart. One morning, as she lay quietly in bed, expecting the worst, a young doctor came rushing in, breathless and urgent. "Lady Chinwe, we are so sorry. There's been a mix-up in your medical records." Lady C's heart skipped. "What do you mean?" "There was a lab error. You do not have cancer. Your blood sample was switched with another patient. You're suffering from an infection that mimics some symptoms of leukemia, but is completely treatable." Lady C sat up dazed. "I'm not dying." "No, ma'am. You're going to be fine." She was discharged 2 weeks later, but she didn't tell anyone. She told the hospital staff to keep it confidential and returned quietly to her mansion. Lady C acted so weak and fragile, as if death still lingered around the corner. Her sister Adora resumed her daily visits, pushing for the signing of documents. She brought in lawyers and even threatened Lady C with the company's future if she didn't do the right thing. But Lady C waited. And then one day, as Adora laid out documents in front of her, demanding she signs over her estate for the good of the family, Lady C slowly pushed herself up from the bed. She looked her sister in the eye and said, "You truly believed I was going to die, didn't you?" Adora's eyes widened in confusion. "What are you talking about?" she asked. "I'm not dying. Not anymore," Lady C said, standing to her feet, strength surging through her body. "I never had cancer, Adora. The hospital made a mistake, and I decided to keep quiet and see what you would do. And now I know." Adora staggered back, speechless. "But you see," Lady C continued, her voice now firm and steady, "while you were out trying to gather my properties, the woman you tried so hard to poison me against was the one who fed me, cleaned my wounds, bathed me, and stayed with me through every long, painful night." Ebele entered the room quietly, pausing in shock at the scene before her. Lady C turned to her with soft, grateful eyes. "Ebele, I owe you more than I can ever repay." She walked over to her, took her hand and turned to the lawyer waiting nearby. "Prepare a new document. I want to transfer the management of one of my companies to Ebele. She'll be the director, and make sure it's stated clearly that the position is permanent." Adora screamed, "You can't do that!" "Oh, I can," Lady C said, her voice cold. "And I will, because I've finally opened my eyes to see who truly cares and who only came for the vulture's feast. Lady C hugged the Bailey tightly. From now on, I only surround myself with people who love me when I have nothing. And with that, the once feared Lady C began to rebuild her life and business. She came back with a bang, rising like a phoenix who had tasted ashes and learned which fires were worth burning for. Her first step was to cut ties with Power Missions Church and Miracle Madame. She exposed the manipulation and financial exploitation, filing an official complaint with the authorities and warning others never to fall into the same trap. The media had a field day, and Miracle Madame fled the country, her empire of deceit crumbling like dust. One evening, she hosted a small family dinner. No press, no executives, no influential guests, just her brother Eze, his wife Ebele, and their kids. Lady C wiped her eyes quietly, overcome by emotion. I was blind, she said softly, her voice trembling, but God used my sickness to open my eyes. Not everyone who shouts your name in the crowd loves you, but some, like you, Ebele, love in silence. She turned to her brother Eze, who had tears in his eyes. I thank God for bringing your wife into this family. If not for her, I might have died lonely and bitter. Adora, on the other hand, tried everything possible to claw her way back into her sister's life. She sent long apology messages, fake tears over voice notes, and even tried to use family elders to intervene. But Lady C responded with only one sentence. I forgive you, Adora, but I don't think I want you in my space. Not now. I'll always support you no matter what. Adora read the message broken. She never knew that life would expose her greed and bitterness in such a public and humiliating way. Her carefully crafted mask of concern had fallen off completely, and for the first time in her life, she had to face the truth that she had lost her sister, not to death but to her own betrayal. The lesson to be learned from this story is that nothing remains hidden under the sun. True character is revealed not in times of wealth and power, but in moments of weakness and despair. Greed, envy, and deceit may thrive for a season, but they eventually crumble under the weight of truth. The mind is a very powerful tool, capable of shaping our reality in the best or worst way possible. So, we should learn how to feed our minds with positive energy, as this would guide the trajectory of our lives. Furthermore, love, humility, and loyalty, like that exemplified by Ebele, shines brightest in the darkest times. Never take for granted the quiet hearts who stand by you when you have nothing to offer. They are the real riches life has to give, and above all, discernment is key, because not every smiling face means well, and not every humble soul is after your throne. I hope you enjoyed this story.